Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Occult Exploration Society live salon featuring Lady Jevim, Dion Agape, and Ryan Seven. How's it going, guys?
Wonderful.
Why are you saying that? We've just said hello to each other. Oh, right, we're live. Oh, I'm only joshing.
But this is so fun. So this is kind of a new ongoing series we're going to be doing where we're going to have these roundtable discussions with people. And many of you would have seen the first roundtable we did with our good friends, Dr. Ammon Hillman and Neil Sandlak of Gnostic Informant yesterday. So today we're back with another one of our good friends, an amazing Ryan Seven. You're an amazing occultist, a filmmaker, tarot card designer, martial artist, and you have your own YouTube channel. And you can be found, what is it, Ryan 7 1111?
That probably right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't go on there. I don't know my own phone number either. Yeah. Rings a bell.
But yeah, so we're here today to kind of just have a good discussion and talk about some really interesting things. Dion, you prepared sort of like a presentation for us, right? Do you want to tell us what this is all about and what we're getting into today?
Yeah. Well, are we talking about Drake today?
Drake?
Sir Francis Drake?
No. No, he knows I'm playing. Not P. Diddy or Drake. We're not talking about the old hip-hop battles. Last night, they got into some heavy talk about Christianity, about the Bible and different texts and, ancient rituals, let's say. So I put together some stuff from our different episodes from last year. Pictures tell 1,000 words, let's say, about some of the esoteric traditions in the Bible. For our new series we'll be kicking off this year, and glad Ryan's here. But martial artists, I just found out at that. I had never seen the videos of him with staffs, disarming, backflips, all kinds of stuff. Props.
Wicked. I do Wu-Tang style.
That's right.
Too much fun.
Because Wu-Tang is forever, and you only have to remember it once, and then you're all right.
That's right.
It's also nothing to F with.
That's right. So, Killer B, huh?
Here.
Oh, we'll start with the first pick. Lactognosis. That's what this is all about. The term gnosis, communion, to know spirituality. And how do we do this? Is it through prayer? Is it through a book? Is it through a Bible? Is it through meditation? Well, we have a form of gnosis right here called lactognosis. Can you explain this, Snappy?
Yeah, so this is Bernard de Clairvaux, a famous saint in the Catholic Church, and this is the Mother of Gods herself in the form of the Divine Holy Virgin Mary with the Divine Child in her right hand, right? And she is exposing her breast, and instead of feeding her child, she is feeding Bernard de Clairvaux. This is supposed to be symbolic gnosis, but as we know, Dion, right? A lot of these milks are a perfect foundation for drugs, and we know that this is encoded mystery within a lot of these cults, and this goes to much deeper, older roots. A lot of the Catholic Church's mysteries are coming from the Syriac cult of Cybele that was installed by the Emperor Heliogabalus, right? And even earlier, with the installment of the Black Stone of Cybele, right? During the the fight against Carthage. So there's deep ancient magic here in the Roman tradition that's been within the upper echelons, within this power of authority, and you have all this encoded life-giving imagery. What do you think, Ryan?
Can I bring this to earth slightly? When people want to make body-soluble cannabis, for example, they use a fat base. Lots of people use butter. You've heard of butter. And so there are certain, you either get polaric and non-polaric molecules. Polaric, basically, they're either water-soluble or fat-soluble or something else soluble. So you need these fatty bases for a lot of these non-soluble substances. So yeah, butter. I once had a vaporizer to clean out, and I used milk, and milk took all those little cannabinoids away, and they floated on the top, and I made something nice out of them later.
It
But
is
just to
true.
bring it to earth, you know, we can see these in the past and go, oh, that's weird. We don't do anything like that now, but we do. Oh, sorry,
Oh,
I'm
well,
actually
also,
balanced on a clay sculpture here.
in Indian tradition, you see this alive and well today, right? There is a very common practice of ingesting milk in the form of bhang, which is either
Yeah.
a milk pastry or a milk tea, you know, and this is cannabis infused in milk fat. And this is a very famous drink that's associated with the god Shiva, as well as many different local deities, depending on its various recipes. It's something that's deeply cultural and significant. So this is a tradition that's ongoing, right? And it will, like you said, it gives you an incredibly profound effect. Anyone who has ingested cannabis will tell you that it's slightly psychedelic, and it will, and it really could aid in meditative experiences, right?
The
Absolutely.
liver turns it into a slightly different chemical. It adds also, I think it decarboxylates. Normally you get decarboxylation, which is the removal of a carbon molecule from things. Amanita needs the same thing for it to be body active. But I think the liver actually puts another chemical on top of that, and it becomes woo. Lots of people have bad experiences like that. Also, it kind of supercharges it as well. So if you're going down that rabbit hole, you better be prepared, because it's going to get scary. You're going to go,
Oh yeah. You know, it's bioavailability. The body will transform a substance into another substance and process it like a chemical factory. And you're talking about fats. So with that, poppies, cannabis, and other ingredients as well as psychoactives. We know they were using psychoactives back in the day, and now the outfits they're wearing are certain colors. The dyes were psychoactive as well. We've talked about that in past episodes, and that can also be a clue. Now, in the painting, Ryan can tell you about the angles. Now, Bernard could be at any angle to receive the gnosis. Why is he at that certain angle, Ryan?
it looks to me like a 3, 4, 5 triangle, but I can't really tell from here. It usually all these things are related to the pole, but what I do see just above his head is a Chi-Rho symbol, and that love heart on there suggests an inverted pentagram. You can kind of make a love heart from that. It's the window of the Hierophant from the tarot is what it is, and it's suggesting 6 and 5 together. 5 being the microcosm, 6 being the macrocosm. So that's then telling you what this milk's doing. But I didn't answer your question about the angles. Have you measured the angle? It looks like a 3, 4, 5.
But I got that from you, because what I've seen you do in previous works, Ryan will take paintings and put like geometry on it, and put and measure the angles. And not only is it sacred geometry, but we got precession of equinox that's being represented in a 2-dimensional form onto a painting. I know you've talked about that before, because he could be eye level, but it's these angles right here that deal with the orbital plane of the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun, and how we measure time. And you notice that the window up there, it deals also with nautical images. It deals with the Chi-Rho symbol, tarot. There's a lot to unpack in one single little picture, but also Saint Bernard is famous for founding some other orders too. I don't know, Snappy smiling. You might know about Saint Bernard.
I can't remember offhand. I'm trying to remember what order he founded. I'm keeping thinking about my mind just keeps going to all of this mother goddess stuff because of the roots of this. I'm reminded now of with the Hierophant, right? We were discussing that ancient unfolding of the natural law, right? The billion-year plan from conception to the end of time, right? And that's representative of that Hierophant. And we're seeing that power kind of reflected here and how it's gained through this symbolic gnosis achieved through conception with this mother goddess, right? And this is also really profound Roman imagery Think about the foundational myth of Rome with the twins, Romulus and Remus, and the drinking of the milk from the wolf mother, right? Ammon has confirmed for us many times that these were priestesses. This is a cult where they're embodying that spirit. It's a shamanic transformation. The wolf mother is something ancient and profound. And this was what was suckling the brothers who created Rome. So that's foundational, profound lactognosis from foundation to now, right? And Bernard of Clairvaux is connecting himself in that lineage and in that deeply Roman and goddess magic.
Yeah, Etruscan lupine magic. The wolf.
I have something to say on the wolf. Oh, sorry, I thought you'd finished.
Yeah.
Carry on.
No, you definitely have something to say.
So, so the thing about a wolf is it lives in the forest, and as we know, there are civilized areas and then there are wild areas. And the forest, I mean, on a deep psychological level, is the edge of the known. The edge of the forest is the edge of the known. You go into the forest, you really don't know what's in there. So the wolf is this being that lives in the forest, and sometimes he comes out of the forest. And there's this idea that you might be getting a visitation, or that maybe you become like the wolf, and this is where we get werewolves from. Yeah, the whole idea of werewolves is a shamanic transformation story, is it not?
100%. Oh, so I apologize. I was on the throne. I'm laughing at myself for forgetting this because it's one of the most ridiculous things. But Bernard de Clairvaux is one of the co-founders of the Knights Templar.
Yeah, totally. I wonder why. I thought you might be building up to it. I'm like, Templar. I say Templar.
I mean,
I'm ashamed I forgot that aspect. I did a story on the Templars.
Right,
I should have
because
remembered that.
we're more entranced by what he's up to, not by who he is.
Right? Who cares?
But that's very telling that the story begins with that. Because we're only seeing what happens after. What happened before the Templars? So let's hit the next pick. Because this is getting juicy.
Juicy.
Whoa.
Woman juice.
Yeah. Right here, this is a sacred relic that's they have a parade in Europe until they had to take it underground in the Vatican somewhere. And that is supposed to be the foreskin of Jesus.
Wow.
They believe it is. And
I think there are a few of them out there.
And the
foreskins
reason I'm bringing this up is body parts in the Bible and communion and gnosis. We're not talking about prayer or meditation or going to church. We're talking about body parts and how it's used in the Bible. And here's an example. People will come to church and worship this. The priests know about it. Hit the next pick.
Well, this connects to some deeply ancient pagan type magic, foundational magic, right? Where you're connected to the ancestor spirit through the remains of the body. You see this in many, many different cultures. You'll see people who will collect talismans, right? Either objects the person owns or specific parts of the body, famously often heads, right? Like we have a famous story within the Greek where after Orpheus is ripped apart by the Maenads, his head floats down upon his lyre to the Isle of Lesbos, where it's then installed as a skull and becomes a voice of prophecy,
And that does tie in with Bernard of Clairvaux with the Templars and the head of John the Baptist.
Yeah,
that's part of it. Body parts that are turned into a form of mystical communion, a form of a psychoactive drug, let's say. So how did they preserve these body parts? Part of it was in olive oil. We know that olive oil was used to consecrate all the items. It's at the Garden of Gethsemane. Each one on their OCSC. These are chrism oils. This is what they anoint the priest with, what they anoint the flock with. And sometimes they had body parts in it. And sometimes they're psychoactive. And in other times, they use these as exorcism oils. If you know about the exorcism with the oils on the body with the priests. It gets deep. We might not even go that deep with it. I don't want to mess up the algorithm. But these are the chrisms oils to be
Read
Christed.
Ammon's Original Sin if you would like to know more.
Yeah. Forms of exorcism with the oils. And to be Christed is to be chrismed, and these are the chrism oils. To be anointed. With body parts as well. Let's hit the next pic. Okay, so there's another way to receive the communion. Through the word, through the Bible, but through the actual page itself, through the scroll. Here we could see an example on the left from an ancient painting where he's eating the scroll. He's eating the actual scroll itself. And some people will say, well, he's just digesting the meaning of the words. But it turns out that there's hallucinogenic inks and hallucinogenic dyes, and the fabric or the paper itself could be hallucinogenic. These are traditions that are coming up now. That's what I'm talking about, these colors and dyes. That's a big part of it. People are not seeing the colors and dyes and fabrics as the transmission itself. Go to the next pic, and we'll explain it even deeper. Yeah, there it is right there, Ezekiel. At the bottom, Son of man, eat this scroll. I'm giving you and fill your stomach with it. So I ate it, and it tasted as sweet as honey in my mouth. And even honey can be hallucinogenic and psychoactive. Bees
Definitely.
bees can pollinate psychoactive plants, take it back, make the honey. You could take psychoactive herbs. You can put it into honey to preserve it. There you go. Taste and see that the Lord is good. You could taste the Lord.
And we know that the honey is deeply connected to these ancient mother goddess cults, right? Again, if we're looking at like, for example, Artemis at Ephesus, right? She's said to be the queen bee, right? Those nodules on that statue are bee eggs. Her priests were called the worker drones, you know, and this is a constant image that you see throughout. We also have the mystical image of Hercules wrestling the lion and drawing out the honey from its carcass, right? And then consuming it in order to have kind of a mystical experience. We see this kind of imagery time and time again in so many different cultures. It's always said to be a part of these golden elixirs. Some people say it is the ambrosia itself, a type of honey, or the amrit from many of the Indian traditions, you know?
You said bees on a carcass. Because there are bees that grow on a carcass and make a psychoactive honey, as well as mushrooms growing on carcasses, which we did an episode a while back about how they would put psychoactive mushroom spores into a dead body, and it could fruit. You get the mycelium, then you get your fruiting body, and you get your mushroom, and it'll incorporate the DNA. Paper. Can we make paper out of mushrooms? Can we make paper out of hemp? Can we make paper out of Amanita muscaria? What is paper and what is the scroll? I'm just saying, it goes a little deeper. Let's hit the next pic. All right, so different forms of communion, not just prayer and meditation or reading the Bible. And this is in the Bible itself, Genesis. And the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning that matter. This is a form of a contract or bond sealed by putting your hand on the thigh of your master. Now we know Dionysus coming from the leg, being born out of the leg. These are traditions of people being born out of a thigh. But go to the next pic. There's more to it because artists have interpreted this. And there's Abraham right there. And there's him swearing the oath. In that little position, you can see. It's a type of a contract sealed. Yeah, you know.
Testament with his testicles.
Yeah.
We talked about this recently.
Yep.
Yeah. He's touching his testicles.
Well, I want to point out, like I had a friend who was stationed in Afghanistan several years ago, and he told us this kind of sad story where there were these tribal elders, and they had a young boy who would come and do this kind of thing and perform, and the soldiers would freak the hell out, and it turned into a whole big violent thing, and everyone lost. But like these kind of practices where you have someone submitting to an elder and performing services, you know, it's a very, very common thing throughout a lot of those cultures across the Middle East and whatnot, especially the ones that are more traditional. You know, it's unfortunate reality.
So we're seeing that there's all over the world. And you can see there's traditions in the Bible itself prescribing these practices. They're not saying don't do this. They're saying, hey, this is how you seal a contract with the patriarch. Let's go to the next pic. Boom. Here's a good one. It's very long. Look at, while I'm in the world and I'm the light of the world. After he said this, he spit on the ground and made mud with the spittle and smeared the mud in the man's eyes. Jesus said to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam. So the man went away and washed, and when he returned, he could see. We've heard of this. Jesus spitting in the eyes, or putting the spittle in the eyes, or some other kind of fluid in the eyes. Go to the next pic. Yep, here's another one. Jesus put his fingers in the man's ear, and then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He spit on the man's tongue and touched it. Sounds like kissing. Somebody's making out.
When I was in anthropology in university, you would see this in many, many different ancient societies where you would have these magical elders, and their bodily fluids are considered sacred and holy and divine medicine. You know, and a lot of this does come from drug ingestion, but they would do things like, in order to heal a child, spit into their hand and then rub it on the child. And you'll see this all across the world to this day, you know. So it's common magical practice to a certain degree, but it also gets gross and wild in some of these more intense versions, you know.
Well, mothers use it to clean off their babies' faces all the time. It's like, oh, come here, you know.
We all hated that, but you got to wonder if there's not something been lost, much like with the Christian Eucharist. You know, was that activity something else? Was certain people's spittle medicated? Was, you know, were the bodies using drugs and converting them for purposes of medicine, and then it's been lost? You know, I'm not saying some aren't still doing it, but like we're repeating things that are, you know, long ago had a meaning. So
I can't for the life of me pronounce this word, but Gandhi and I, a good friend of mine, we were digging into this earlier today on Discord, and this word is used in this passage to talk about the eye, what's put in the eyes. And when we're breaking all the roots and etymologies of this down, it's connected to the mushroom, it's connected to the roaring thunder, it's connected to various types of salves. There was even a story with Marcus Aurelius that Gandhi found, where he uses it as a metaphor, where he says you should be diligent like the person who has an eye infection and is constantly like putting this drug, the salve in their eyes.
What is that called when you go to the cosmetologist? When you put something on your face? Because I don't know if I speak Greek, but that looked like you said
like cosmetics.
Yes.
Like cosmetics, yeah. Well, why do witches have green faces?
Why?
Mm.
Well, because they're putting ointments on the face.
Yeah, or even Woad. Look at Woad, like in Braveheart, when they got that blue on the face going into battle.
Yeah.
And that's where the dyes are coming from. I'm talking about hallucinogenic dyes is a big part of this. It's just, how do we do transmission in modern times versus transmission in ancient times? In ancient times, they could spit in your eyes. They could, you could get breast milks. You could do all kinds of neat different things. And it deals also, he does one of those Aramaic phrases. Whenever in the Bible you see an Aramaic phrase, it's meant to be sung as a magical spell. You'll see that, and that's Mark, and Marcus is kind of a special one. There are a lot of drug references. Let's hit the next pic. So imagine, here's another one, because we talked about sealing the contract with Abraham. Well, here's a different one. And she made him sleep between her knees. And she called the barber, and he shaved 7 braids of his hair, and it began to humble him, and his strength went from him. We've heard about cutting of the hair to get the power. But he had to sleep between her knees. It's just like the other guy had to sleep go between Abraham's knees to seal the contract. It's a binding of a contract.
Samson?
Yeah.
So Samson's the son. As you know, these allegories are very layered. So Samson's is in much of a part. He's the son and the 7 braids are surely the 7 planets. So it's as these ideas of resistors to stop you being the universe and to incarnate you by resisting these 7 things. So imagining cutting off 7 braids of hair would be much like, in a modern sense, Kundalini raising up, going past these 7 seals, and you would become like the universe again at that point, and be out there, not in here.
Oh yeah, the 7 number is prevalent. The 7 days and everything's created. That 7's a special number there.
It's also that deep binding magic, right? There's the other half of the thing with the hair to pay attention to is that it's an oath to never do something, right? And that's that kind of religious magic, that patriarchal Saturnian kind of force to bind oneself to something. So he's tying himself to the planets, tying himself to the earth, so he cannot be freed. Right? It's a very interesting kind of thing. And this is in order to serve God. I've become a slave to God. These are the chains that bind him. But the chains also give him strength, right? The strength to destroy another temple, right?
Could you explain the reference of hair in Sikhi? How that works with...
Okay, so in Sikhism, this comes from Guru Gobind Singh, who's the very last of the gurus, the final one, who seals the transmission of gurus and invests it within the Guru Granth Sahib, which is their book. Okay, they were facing genocide. You have to understand, they were culturally facing genocide by various forces, Islamic, Mughal. It's complicated, but the community was under threat. So they were militarized by their leader. And as part of this militarization, he created a special society of those who would become warriors, baptized, right? And they would swear oaths, right? You have the 5 Ks that you would have to swear. And one of them is kesh, which is your hair. You also have to wear a comb. There's a kanga, which is a bracelet. There's a special type of undergarment that you have to wear. And then there's this dagger that you're supposed to wear. And what happened basically was Guru Gobind Singh did this ritual where he would take his sword and he had the special drink and he mixed the drink. And then he gave this to his most honored people, and they swore these oaths to never do these things because traditionally they wore the hair long in imitation of the earliest gurus, right? But what was happening is under extreme religious persecution, many people were cutting the hair as a way to blend in with other communities, as a way to not be targeted. So this was kind of a firebrand move where we're saying, no, we're going to highlight our differences. We're going to militarize and defend ourselves. And, you know, we're not going to be broken. And they weren't broken. Eventually, this led to their own country. And, you know, they're one of the largest religious movements in the world today. Interesting stuff. But it's about knighthood bounds by taking a sacred drink, the Amrit, and swearing to do things like never cut your hair and wear the comb and wear the sword and wear the band and wear the undergarment, you know?
Yeah. An ancient connection of dealing with warriors and cutting of hair and strength. It's pretty wild. So I appreciate everyone's time. Let's hit the next pick. Okay, another tradition in the Bible of communion. And this one is deeply troubling. And that what I'm trying to point at is regular folks don't read a lot of these verses in the Bible. Because I show this to people and I never heard that. But they know all these other verses. Now, let's say you're really into this stuff. Like these priests that cause problems that we hear about, that are getting arrested for doing bad things. And we wonder why there's so many of them doing it. Is there a tradition there? And yes, there is a tradition there. It's behind the scenes. It's something they study and they learn. Like here's Paul. Paul, who was iconic in the church, one of their prophets. And there's a story where a gentleman falls out of the window, a young youth. He falls to his death. And Paul says, don't worry, I'll take care of this. And then here's what happens. From Acts 20, Paul went down, threw himself on the young man, and put his arms around him. And he said, "Don't be alarmed." He said, "He's alive." Can you hit the next pic? So there's a tradition, it's called, of laying on boys in the Bible. That was Paul. He went to lay on a dead boy. We call that necrophilia. But all right, here's another one, the prophet Elisha. Then Elisha got on the bed and lay on the boy, mouth to mouth, eye to eye, and hand to hand. And he stretched himself out over him, and the boy's body became warm. The boy was dead on the bed. And the prophet Elisha got on him and put his mouth on his mouth. That's necrophilia. This is a tradition in the Bible. There's even more, because you got Elisha and Elijah. We showed Ezekiel with the scrolls, and Paul laid on the boys. Let's go to the next pic. So when they would do this, where would they do it at? Well, they would get together and have these things called agape love feasts. Sounds like a party, and it is a party. That's called a triclinium at the bottom. That's how the Romans used to party and hang out and eat dinner. They didn't sit at a table. You laid down. And it was in a U-shaped, and servants and maids and musicians would bring you your food. The Last Supper looked like that. That was the kind of table they used. That's why they were laying on each other. Up in the corner, you could see an example of that they found in Malta, these tombs, the agape tombs, where they had the love feasts. And that was an agape table, and you could see they would all lay down and have cushions on it. And those are in the middle of tombs. Around them would be dead bodies.
One of the funniest things, we have all of these references, okay, from this era of like the Romans getting really upset because they keep finding the Christians in the tombs, hotboxing the tombs and having orgies. And the Romans persecuting them, trying to get them to stop.
I heard about beer being brewed down there and all sorts.
Yes, with the dead bodies.
That's so bad. Okay, get this. It gets so bad. They put literal cages around the corpses to stop them from stealing the corpse liquor, which they were drinking to get high. Corpse liquor.
Bloody Christians.
Why? Why are we doing it? Because we want to commune with our ancestors. This is a form of ancestor worship and communion in a psychoactive form. We're talking about something other than prayer and meditation, but a form of transmission that deals with body parts and enlightenment and psychoactive stuff. So they're down in the tombs. There's different forms of psychoactives they had. Beer, they would brew beer down there. There was one tradition of putting, like I said, mushrooms on dead bodies, which is, it's true, it happens. That's what you use. You use the dead wood logs, you use dead animals, and the spores will grow out of it. And it'll bond with whatever the DNA is in there and incorporate it into it. And even there's an older tradition of doing this as well. If you go to the next pic. Yeah, here it is. This is from Rosh Sharma. Who did it back in the day, way old. The Masereh, which they used to do Sumerian down in the tombs, and they would brew beer. And you would brew beer next to the dead bodies because it was a form of communion with your ancestors. And the beer had ergotized weed on it, which is part of a whole nother tradition. And you notice there's a horse or donkey there. That's part of it. That's part of the tradition too. You bring animals down there as well, because we're talking about gnosis between humans, but there's gnosis between animals as well, because animals sometimes can process drugs better than a human, especially if it's a grass-based thing like a cow or a horse. They can process something better because they have dual stomachs and they chew cuds, as opposed to say like a tiger who has canines, and those type of animals digest through their mouth, and their tongue will be out like, they breathe heavy, and they got digestive juices there, whereas the other animals have the digestive juices in their double track system to digest the wheat from the grasses and break that down. And we've messed with AI in past episodes. You could take half these animals and half the psychedelics and combine them together. Certain animals have better properties for breaking down different things, whether it's fat soluble. We know that horses, you could give it rattlesnake venom for 18 months, and at the end of 18 months, you could take that milk from the horse and it'll have antibodies. for the venom.
The other big one is sheep's blood, right?
Even
Sheep's
better.
blood is even more effective, right? It's even more effective at producing snake antivenoms, right? And what was Jesus Christ up to? He was using snake venoms. So why does he need the blood of the lamb, everyone?
Yeah, we're going to get that.
The venom's called milk too, right? And when you go, you're milking the snakes with the venoms, and the venom's what it makes the milk.
Yeah, and so there's so many ways to break down these animals in humans, and it's like a computer. We don't see how to program it today, but back then they know how to program it. They're saying like, okay, give that animal this thing, that herb, take its urine, take its milk, take its saliva, take whatever, and it'll have it. We've talked about the doves of Aphrodite when they have the columbariums, the dove coops. Well, doves produce something called dove's milk, which is different than, like, some birds will chew food and give it to the baby bird. Well, that's just chewed, digested food. What a dove does, it can take a food or substance and process it through its body, biotransform it, and then it produces the milk that it lactates. And people could collect it, and you massage it, and it's through a high protein diet, and you can put poppy seeds and cannabis seeds, and build an Aphrodite in the doves in the Bible, which we'll talk about like in later episodes when we get into the whips and the doves and stuff. But let's hit the next pick. Boom. So we're talking about down in the tombs, they have horses or donkeys, because horses and donkeys, the ontological function is a big part of it. And a lot of Islamic texts, they believe that the donkey of Muhammad, Burak, there's different donkeys. Even Al-Jalal at the end comes on a donkey, the Antichrist, as well as donkey. Muhammad ascends to heaven on the donkey. Each time goes on the donkey. And people will say that it is Amanita muscaria. A lot of references to it. These mushrooms in Muhammad. You know, he even had his favorite donkey. We did the episode about Muhammad, and he fell in love with the donkey, Maria al-Qabt, the Egyptian from, came from Egypt as a slave who was a priestess. He fell in love with her, but she also brought a talking donkey called Yafur, which meant deer in Arabic. And the donkey used to talk to Muhammad, used to go knock on doors for Muhammad, and he would even do Hajj around the black stone, the Kaaba stone, on the donkey, but there's a lot more to the donkey.
Say, just to get in there, while you made a reference, we can see Baraka, the steed of Muhammad there, it would have red and white dots on it. Well, I noticed in a lot of the old European stuff, that same idea was embodied in the deer, and you just said Muhammad, donkey, a deer, and it wasn't a deer because a deer's got like a red top with white spots all over it, like a Bambi.
Yeah. Oh, it's true.
It's that same motif. So I totally agree with this, and I'm sure you're going to talk about Pegasus there coming from Medusa's blood.
Oh yeah, Pegasus is part of it too, and wrestling with Pegasus. It's so Pegasus coming from the blood of the head, because we're talking about the heads as using as a transformation symbol as well. But there's even more with these donkeys and horses. Remember, Jesus rides the donkey into town right before, and he actually has James go steal the donkey, or John, the beloved John, his lover, goes steals a donkey on purpose. There's Balaam in the Bible where he has sex with the donkey to get magical prophecies from it. And then the angel has to intervene and kick his ass. And he says, you can't treat the donkey like that. It's the story of Balaam and the donkey.
Okay, so it's dubious source, it's Roman sources, but there are sources that say when they went into the Holy of Holies in the original temple, that there was a man sitting upon a donkey as the idol inside, right? And then there's the earliest image of Christ is that famous donkey-headed one.
Hit the next pick. Hit the next pick.
That's what I was thinking.
And it also connects to this Sethian stuff, right? Where Set is the god of the donkey, and he's this chaos god of the deserts. And if you think about the acts of Moses and what he does in order to free the Israelites from slavery in that story, it seems pretty chaotic and desert magic,
Well, that donkey, I'm sorry, that donkey right there even looks like Set.
Well, hit the next pick. Yeah, hit that next pick and you'll see that.
That's what I was thinking. I'm sorry, Snappy, to interrupt you.
Sorry, Dion.
So,
No. That's what you're talking about. It
I have one thing to say before Dion gets in there?
Go for it. No,
yeah, so that whole Seth, the donkey, like Jesus is the donkey, and although people think Baphomet is a goat head, that's an ass's head, a donkey head. And unless Dion's going to explain, if you get to the end of this and you've not explained what I'm thinking, I'll say it at the end. So I'll let Dion do his bit.
Oh, no, I say as much as you want. That's what we're here. We're just stirring up the pot. That's what this is all about.
Oh, well, donkeys are like, like there's an ass, a horse, a donkey, and donkeys can't procreate. This is the thing. They can't procreate. They're like a monk or a wizard or somebody like that. Baphomet himself is a warning against just going to try and use your genitals for fun, basically. And you're supposed to not go and do that. And the donkey not being able to procreate, or you choosing not to procreate, or expose your sexual fluids everywhere. That's the base idea of it, as far as I can tell.
Well, it's a mule that's sterile. So donkeys aren't sterile. Donkeys are their own thing. It's the mule that's sterile.
So it's the ass. Yeah, that's right. The ass, which is what Baphomet is.
Baphomet is an ass. But there is still a deep connection between a lot of these animals for the use of this biotransformation and use as a vehicle for flight, right? We see this so often.
Hit the next pick. Boom. Since we're looking at the nautical crucifixion, or a donkey on the crucifixion there, remember we started off with St. Bernard up in the corner window, and Ryan commented on that window pane. That's the same symbol right there. It's when you're driving the ship, you're steering the ship. And that's on a cross right there with the crucifixion. And so there's a form of nautical crucifixions. Now, they found a coin that had Orpheus on it as a Bacchic Christ. And some people will say it's phony or whatever it is. Well, no. It was made in the 16th century. Who in the 16th century had an idea that Orpheus was to be crucified on a ship mast?
Oh, we were just talking about this last night.
Well, the Templar. 16th century, the Rosicrucians. It depends where it's made. That's like, I don't know. That looks Eastern, not Eastern, but like mid-European. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And so it has Greek on it.
When we were talking about this last night, there were two scenes from the Odyssey that immediately come to mind. One is the battle against the Harpies. Okay, in order to defeat the Harpies, what happens is Odysseus, he puts wax into all of the ears of his shipmates, but then he has them tie himself to the mast so that he can experience the song of the divine but not succumb to their horror, right? And then this image is then repeated later with the prophecy where he takes the oars and he goes out to into the middle of the land, and he turns him into a winnowing fan, and he sticks him in the earth, and he puts himself upon the cross to receive a sign. So there's a lot of deep imagery, and we got to remember too, in the goddess worship, the earlier traditions, the cross is the sign of the Great Mother and of the point where you draw the star down. This is the crossroads where X marks the spot. The 5 is the earth. It's that unfolding. So whenever you see this cross and you see someone crucified on it, this is a sign of apotheosis. Apotheosis in the ancient traditions is often achieved through death. Who else was put on a pyre and set ablaze to ascend because he couldn't die? We talked about this last night too. Heracles, right? This is an ongoing kind of theme. In order to ascend to the stars, you've got to go where the crossroads meet, and you have to burn like the Virgin.
You have to get your feet and hands dirty. You got to get dirty with it if you're going to meet the goddess.
In the past, our pole star wasn't where it is now. It was actually at Deneb in Cygnus, the swan. Now, Orpheus, which says Orpheo, that Orpheus goes and turns into Cygnus, the swan. And when you overlay that image over Cygnus, it fits the image on the right that says Orpheo. Now, in tarot, that's called the Hanged Man. Cygnus is the Hanged Man, and you can see this is a hanged man.
Mm-hmm.
So now we talked about, and I'm not sure about this, but here's the thing. Now, this could equally be, as well as being the 4 dimensions and 4 elements coming together, and you go into the pole star and being like the nothing and releasing yourself into the everything. This is the brain stem. This is the back of the neck inside, going into the bottom of the brain, and the place where the 2 hemispheres meet, biologically speaking, esoterically speaking, is where the chemical wedding happens between the male and the female, the left and right side of the brain. Knowing things like Calgary, where Jesus was crucified, that means Golgotha, sorry, that means skull. It's in your skull. So those 2, where it turns into an anchor, those 2 anchors that come off traditionally have 2 fish attached to them. Certainly at the beginning, there were 2 fish of Pisces. Now, in the brain, considering that's Jesus is the brain stem and the 2 crosses that cross, that's the center of the brain. They seem to indicate the hippocampus, which is, if there's the Ammon's horn of the brain there, and then underneath them, there's these 2 little white horses. They call them the sea horses, hippocampus. It can kind of mean sea monster as well, but when you look at them, they look like 2 little white horses. And this, as well as the pituitary and the pineal, are places that the more biologically centered mystics seem to think that these more sacred processes are going on, like bodily production of DMT and such things. So there you go. No, I'm not 100% sure about that, but all the symbols line up. And to say that Cygnus is dipping its head into the dark rift up in the sky. So like Thoth, the Egyptian Hermes, Mercury, he's an ibis bird, and that dips its head under the waters as well. That's a mystical thing. You're going under the unconscious to go and have a look around. That's the underworld. And that's what Jesus does after he's executed. He goes into the underworld for 3 days, releases all the souls, and then goes up to heaven because he's all right like that.
That's beautiful, and it's clearly, I think, wow, yeah.
That is amazing.
You see this continued within the alchemical tradition, especially within the hidden mysteries of Christ. You see it everywhere, right? Look for the brain imagery. It's right on the Sistine Chapel. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So, I'd also like to add the aspect of the scapology, or the skiff, which is the boat, like how Vikings have funerals on the boat. In a lot of the older iconography, angels are arriving on ships or boats. It's part of, I'm not saying the UFOs or alien thing, but it's traditionally angels can sometimes be seen arriving from ships from other dimensions. It's part of the nautical crucifixion as a transformation into a different dimension. Let's hit the next bit. Since we're talking about boats and pirates, let's do a little pirate aspect. Here's St. Christopher protect us with an anchor, and it shows St. Christopher taking little boys across the sea, transporting boys across the sea. We talked about in earlier episodes the slave trade, Roman slave trade, and boys were used for labor forces, for mystical rites, for a lot of reasons. The slave trade was big back in the day. People don't know it now, but in an average house back in the day, you might have 2 or 3 slave boys, and they were your maids and servants, and it was normal. It was a form of caste system in the ancient world. We've talked about stealing boys as the pirate aspect of Christianity, and there's different texts and different documents over the years where people point towards this. St. Christopher is a tradition that's part of that. Go to the next pic.
Can I say something on that before you do that?
Yeah.
If we can go back to the last image. Now, to me, I don't know what you're about to say, but for me, I was always like, what do the names mean? Well, St. Christopher always appeared to me to be a bit of a nudge and a wink to a Saint Lucifer. Because they say Christ over means to bear Christ. Well, if you look at that, it's Christ, Opher. Opher's a serpent. That's the Ophites.
Yeah.
We all know what Christ means. So, and if it's there might be an analogy there. If it's a Saint Lucifer, Lucifer being Venus, the morning star, and if Christ in this context is astrotheological, well, Lucifer does carry the sun. It carries it over the water. It comes out of the water. Lucifer, the Venus, brings up the sun, and then the sun takes over and goes off in its own way. Well,
and he has the staff there, and in most paintings, you'll see the staff tilted at a certain angle, giving us precession or giving us triangles and sacred geometry. So the next pick, because Saint Christopher is also a dog. We'll get into the canine or the kynomatrions, the dog martyrs, dog heads, as pirates stealing kids as well, or as a form of Jesus, as Anubis or a donkey.
Yep. That's the Hermes has it as well. It's the underworld aspect, because for the same reason that Ibis has its head under the water and Cygnus has its head under the water, dogs go and fetch things. So that bird's looking for something to eat or consume, might be a thought if it's mystical. But the dogs go and fetching, often the water dogs. Mercury's occult name is Mer and Kerr, which is water, Mer, and Kerr is a dog, water dog. And they're like gun dogs. You shoot the bird, it goes in the water. The dog goes and fetches it and brings it out of the water. It's this chthonic, mystical,
when we look at
retrieving information.
When we look at the cult of Hecate, right, we have all these stories of her dogs going to fetch things or receiving things at the crossroads. You used to leave offering special cakes for the dogs at the crossroads, and these were said to be psychoactive for the dogs. And when we look in a lot of the later witchcraft tradition, which comes out of this, it becomes even more clear, because the dogs are used to go and find specific plants that contain scopolamine, which is the main ingredient used in these flying ointments. And the flying ointments are used to cause astral projection. Astral projection allows you to move to the underworld or to heaven. It's all about scopolamine.
Do you think that, for a moment, I thought there might be a reason why they're using dogs themselves? Maybe that the scopolamine doesn't affect them the same. Because mandrake, that's pulled up by a dog.
Exactly. And it's a huge source of scopolamine. That's one of these central ingredients that they would be using in these kind of ointments, right? And it is pulled up by a dog because they don't go insane. They can touch because what happens is
you wouldn't send a dog to pick mushrooms.
You touch mandrake with your hands directly, you can potentially get some of the poison leached into you. But that doesn't happen for the dogs. This is why you get these crazy stories and these like grimoires where they talk about how you have to pull them out with the dogs and you have to stop them from screaming. And if you hear the screaming, you'll die. It's this whole big ritual to get the mandrake. But it's just about protecting you so that you can get to that poison.
Well, you got to think of Heracles and his dog getting the purple shells as well. Exactly. Or maybe the dogs are just more expendable.
Both.
Maybe.
Well, there's also a sacred healing aspect to the dogs. Like Dion, remember that episode we did on the Temple of Asclepius, where the dogs are licking all of the people who are wounded, and the saliva of the dogs is affecting the wounds, and they were breeding dogs to be these medicine dogs. So there's all of this magical stuff associated with dogs, and we have to remember they're easy to breed and they can diverge quickly into a specialized class. And you see this across human history.
And that's what they are.
And they can eat and digest so much more than we can too, safely.
Yeah. And so you have Anubis, he takes the souls in Egyptian mythology through the underworld. The dog-headed god Anubis, dogs are special. And talking about licking, the canine, they used to have those in ancient times on the battlefield. After you get cut up and stuff, you go back and the dogs, they'd have special dogs to lick you.
Wow.
But dogs have, let's say, separated from wolves in a certain aspect that they can't kind of survive. The dogs are on their own special class with humans. They're not wolves. They're technically are wolves, but wolves are still wild. The dog has kind of, they've bred them, and they go back to ancient Canaanite dogs and it's so special that they're in the tombs. They're with the pharaohs. They made mummies of dogs. Let's hit the next pic. Nope. Right there, because that's part of the nautical aspect we're looking at of this pirate aspect, are Semiramis, outer goddess, these encoded images, Vesica Pisces, the Ithacus being the son of outer goddess or Semiramis. Yeah, just wanted to leave it with that. I don't even know. Is there more pics?
Sorry, no, I didn't have any more.
Yeah, no, that's all right there. I timed it about for about an hour. Just had put some. What I'm trying to do is subconsciously program the viewers with alternative images and sayings, quotes, verses in the Bible that relate to a different form of transmission than you're normally told at your normal church.
Well, we can do this quickly if you like. So you mentioned that this is sacred geometry. The base of sacred geometry is called a vesica piscis, which just means the vessel of the fish. And you'll know it from two circles coming together. You get a little almond shape in the middle. That's that. The word ichthys, as well as you said, is related to two little sea creatures that look like, sometimes look like fish, sometimes look like lobsters. There's a whole shamanic thing because they help pull the chariot of Aphrodite, I think, or maybe Neptune, something like that. And ichthys itself is gematria or isopsophy, which is basically you exchange the numbers for letters. And again, this is all pole star stuff, and I can't remember the exact number, but it's probably like 216 or 432 or something like that, or 25920. One of these really important processional numbers that come out of time and are used to build cathedrals and pyramids and things like that.
I also going to point out a bunch of this mother cultist stuff. We have the crossroads, the X marks the spot. This is also about gender transformation, right? You mentioned a very important goddess who's at the center of these gender transformations. That's Atagarsis, who is the intersexed Phrygian goddess mother, right? And Atagarsis, she's said to be related to the almond tree. And there's this story where she goes through this process of divine imitation, and she castrates off her male parts and becomes fully the goddess. Then she gives birth to another intersexed being, Attis. And then Attis is more masculine. And they go through the same process where they're bound down into this mud with the nymphs in these dark waters. And they go through this process of riding upon a beast and castrating themselves and coming out of the waters and rising up in order to go through this process of divine imitation and become the goddess. Like, you can see this clearly, people who are into the tarot. It's I have the deck here. I wonder if I can find it, but it is the Prince of Cups cards here. I'm just going to go on to me for a second here. If you take a look, this is Attis coming out of the mud, separating from the nymphs, riding upon the beast, going through the process of divine imitation, drinking the cup, right, in his hand, in order to become that sacred mother. The same process his mother had gone through prior. And it's this divine cycle, and it's all represented, with this Vesica Pisces symbol, right? This crossroads where you go through this shift where the poles are flipped and male becomes female or becomes one.
It's the last station in the zodiac, which is Pisces, which is this flipping of a male and female, of mind, of body, of soul, of whatever, however you want to see it. It's this constant flipping because neither one's sure which one's correct, because neither are correct, both are correct. It's strange like that. And you can't help but think also, in the zodiac represents a high point and a low point, and that low point's shamanic, and Pisces is particularly associated with mysticism and really getting into the depths. And to that, we are also reminded of your guys' dreamfish from near Israel and such places, which is at certain times of year a psychedelic fish.
Yeah, that's the Sarpa Selma.
Yeah.
You know, I got a special request. Before you speak, Jevim, do you have your tarot deck, Jevim, with you?
Which one? The iconic?
Okay. Just making sure. Yeah.
The roast
I'm curious
iconic.
to do a community reading in a little while, if you could do that, because I'm glad to be here with 3 gifted tarot individuals, and you know I don't know anything about that, so yeah, I would love to see your guys' magic.
Well, this deck is very much a mirror to hold up to a situation or a person, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. But what I was going to say is every time I see the fish symbol, I think about how Jesus was a fisher of men, a fisherman. And now it's like and when you learn about what Amen says about he was Laestace, a pirate, it makes sense, right? Fisher of men, pirates, piracy, stealing your finances, your soul, your happiness, your freedom. It's the way I see it. It's the way I see Christianity too.
Well,
and I have a good story if you want me to go into that. When I was little, my grandmother left a church because the church said, if you have 2 cars, sell one, give the money to the church. Stocks, bonds, anything you have saved up, give your money to the church. So I learned at a very young age not to trust the church. Yeah.
Scary stuff. No, that's wild. But yeah, this was a great presentation, guys. So what is everyone's general takeaway from this kind of thing? Like,
well, I think that was a summary of a lot of the things in the earlier Occult Explorers previous podcast, wasn't it? This is like the end of season show, maybe the beginning of a new season. I see where you guys are going. Yeah. But you know, I joined you guys because of watching Occult Explorers. That, you know, this show is why I'm here. You know, I saw fellow minds, and you know, these are, look, we could all research the occult. I see lots of people on Facebook, they just believe everything. You know, the first thing they hear, they're like, oh, look at this, Alex Jones has said this to Graham Hancock's, you know, through whoever else. You know, there's so much silliness in all this. It's such a pleasure to land in a place where things are, yeah, okay, you get to something of an end to it, but it's like, we don't know. We're doing our best. No one's told us. We're trying to figure it all out. You can see so much is true from comparison. You compare this to that, to the, oh, they've all got the same thing. Even if it might not be true in this context, it's still a true thing. We found something out. And that's what I love about Occult Explorers. It's a true exploration and an open-ended conversation with the occult and with your followers. With me, I'm one of them.
Well, you're our fellow explorer. We're exploring in your channel too. People definitely got to check out your. I know you got some interesting stuff in the works coming soon with your tarot and a movie and
lots of things. Yeah,
I'm so excited for the tarot.
Yeah, when's your Kickstarter gonna drop for your tarot?
It's so close. It's so close. I'm like, maybe the end of next week I'll have everything together so I can say I can pick a date. But it's like it's imminent.
Getting ready to prepare. No, that's amazing.
Stand by.
Amazing. Love to see it.
Okay. Do you want me to read for the community?
Pull a couple cards.
Okay, I will do 3, which is usually I see as kind of past, present, and future with it. And like I said, for the audience, this is the Roast Iconic Oracle deck. This is nothing like you've ever seen before, okay? So just to let you know, so I'm shuffling for the past of this community. We'll see if one falls. 4 fell. 5 fell. Can't do that. I can't do
that. What?
I asked for 3 and 5 came, and I said, no, universe, give me what I want.
You tell the universe.
All right. Past card is land back. This is taking back what belongs to the natives, meaning the pagans, meaning the ancient texts, the ancient rites, the ancient rituals, the ancient secrets, the ancient communities, the things they did. This is a new renaissance, I think. We are owning back our seasons, right? Our holidays, and we're owning all the other celebrations that was stolen from us.
I think it's important too. There's another way you can read this idea of land back, okay? And I think this is incredibly important for all of us, and that is to get out and connect to the land, right? We talk all about the mother goddess, that is the land itself, the natural world. You have to embrace the earth and be in touch with this. And when you know what's happening around you, you have such a stronger connection. People often ask, how do you connect to spirits and how do you have these deep intuitions? Go out. If there's a river next to you, touch the river. If there's a woods, sit in the woods, right? Feed the birds. Seriously, nothing better.
Yeah, no, it's great. Some people you can see, you've been in the city too long. You need to go out into nature, and it takes less than a minute, and you just seem to breathe it all in. And well, people that are used to being there, can you just breathe it all in, and suddenly you're one with it. You're just looking at the green, and you're not thinking about how bad your day was, and the smells and the sounds, and back to nature. It's great. Reset. It's a reset.
Well, there's something magical too. Okay, like for years and years, I lived deep in the city. Okay, in Ottawa, which is a huge city, over 1 million people now, and I didn't really, for a good 5-6 years, I didn't really see the stars. And you're just in it all the time. And so when I moved out to where I am now, and I'm on this river, there was one night I remember going out and finally seeing that sky open up and seeing it in its full glory without light pollution. And it is a religious experience. And think about it. So many people go almost their whole lives now without ever even having that experience. How many young people will live in the city and not even understand what the stars truly mean outside of seeing them in fiction on movies or on YouTube? Wow.
Are you ready for the present?
Yeah.
At the present, we have the unicorn. All right. This is harnessing your own power and your own magic, and not just saying, well, it's okay, let that go. No, if people are using you, it's time to stop it. If people don't see your beauty and your gifts and that which you bring to the world, the unicorn is like, you're a rare gem. Own that. So that's what's going on now in community, right? Because this community is very sacred, right? We need to honor it and we need to protect it. And I think that's that's harkened to that.
I want to be clear, there's some comments there. Ottawa is a beautiful city. I didn't see the stars because I stayed in the city and was working as a musician in bars and was just, too busy for that shit. I could have just taken a drive of 10 minutes to a clearing, Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
What were you going to say, Ryan?
Forget. Oh, I wanted to say about the unicorn. I just got a strong compulsion to say, don't sell out.
Yeah.
If you're a unicorn, if that's the main thing. Just don't sell out. That's it. Keep your soul. The soul is one. You're like an individual. Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, be your unique self, like in all of the stories, they're this rare, incredible beauty that can only be approached by the most pure, right? It's this idealized uniqueness. So this is something, on one hand, you can strive for beauty, to be that unicorn, to stand out and to embrace that divinity. And at the other time, you can do this, you can see it as this like it's that uniqueness, that striving to be something that's pure and transformative, and remembering that the unicorn requires purity, virtue.
Has to be a maiden. A maiden can coax it to sit down next to a bush, apparently, which makes me think it might be a cannabis allegory, because if you only want the females and you don't want the males, Yeah,
No,
there's
very
something,
true.
and the
Yeah.
single corns, corn means horn. So you've got single horns, and cannabis grows mainly in one big horn at the top. That's my thoughts anyway.
Yeah,
And you got that
it
bush
grows
involved,
straight up.
so there's a
Well, and the
bit of a
males grow straight up too,
yeah,
right? Doesn't the
yeah,
males, like the females kind
really
of bush
quickly.
out and then and very,
Well,
yeah, the males go
that's the bushing out is a bit more modern. They do definitely bush out with the well, you got your one corn at the top, but the males grow similar to females, and then suddenly they grow really blooming quickly, and then they empty out the seed or
thing-
the
When
pollen
I,
over the top,
when I
the
think of the
sperm. Yeah,
unicorn myth, I'm also reminded of sort of one of the primordial woman's to power myths, which is this idea of conquering the beast, right? The horse is the most powerful of the animals. It's the steed that takes you into battle. So we have to remember that on one hand, it's to me, the unicorn, especially because it appears in Christian literature, it is an analog for the angel. On the one hand, the angel is this incredible, pure, majestic thing, but it is also a beast, a horror that is terrifying to see, right? And only the most pure get to ride upon this angelic form and be protected and transcended. It's about purity and forgiveness and this angelic will to power. It's very similar to myths we see like Persephone conquering Pluto, or Beauty and the Beast. As uncomfortable as that is an ancient myth about a woman overcoming an abusive relationship and conquering that man, and this is a very strong image we see where women want to attach themselves to a powerful beast and use it to their own protective ends, right? It's not
a horny beast.
Everyone else, right? Yeah, horny beast as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, I think because of its whiteness, there's something about it that suggests feminine.
Yeah,
well, it is it's a masculine emblem. It's got a big penis growing out of the front of his head. That's what it is. It's just like, as you said, it's a transcendent male. It's enveloped with the female, and it's become, like you said, it's more than here, but it's also a terrible, awesome, awful power.
Right.
So then the gay community got hold of it. Right.
Right.
It makes me think of like if I'm going to compare it to Indian myths, right? We have the story of Parvati, who has to wake up Shiva, right? Shiva is in his cosmic meditation. He's sealed off from the world. He cannot be awakened. But she, through her presence and through her calm approach and her love, and even through her imitation, they say that she engages in austerity. She only eats the seeds of the lotus. She imitates him in yoga. And then eventually they wake up and they unite. And their cosmic orgasm produces the pillar of fire, that transcendent overcoming of reality. So you see many different parallels of this kind of image of the woman seducing the male, overcoming the beast. And again, through this unity of love and compassion, transcending in that fiery bliss of the orgasm. Or of the horn.
So what's next week? What's next?
Can I go to the future now?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. It's the Oracle. So, own your own power and your gifts. Okay? Because once you own them, after you own them, you can share them with the world. Don't be ashamed of them. Don't be afraid of them. Don't let them intimidate you into not, working with them, exercising with your own gifts. Harness them. Own your own fabulousness. That's all. That's the future.
Yeah, look to the signs also, right? The Oracle is the one who can read the signs, and gives out those signs. So this is about connecting to your muse, learning to be in that perceptive flow and to just go with it. When you see things that are like telling you and screaming, oh, this is what you're interested in, come here, do this, it's a way of perceiving the world, oracular vision. And it's all about intuition.
Yeah, less ego, more being like the world. Like,
receptive.
Yeah, be open to it and realize you are it, it is you. You can't separate the salmon from the river, that kind of an idea.
you have to pay attention to your dreams for them to matter, right? Like you could just ignore them.
Yeah, I mean,
But
beware of them. However, you must have your, intellect switched on at the same time, else you'll just end up listening to the silly voices in your head. And we know how much trouble they got me in last time.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, what do you guys want to talk about for next week? Does anyone have any ideas?
I've heard a lot of questions both on the Reddit group and in the Discord about the purple. What does the purple do? How they use the purple? Where is the purple used? What does it do? How's it used? Where does it come from? And everything. So I would really love to just vomit purple all over everybody next time. That would be great.
Well, here's an idea, because I've said previously, and maybe this isn't the right forum to talk about it, but that we all actually get our heads together and produce something a bit more than a live stream or something like that, like a nice little documentary between us all, a group effort, get Dion's medical, Snappy's philosophy, my weird anecdotes, Jevim's deep love for it all. Let's splatter it out everywhere.
I love that idea.
It's in the works. Yeah. It's in the works already.
There's so much great things coming out.
We got the artists working on it, on illustrating, bringing it to life so people can see it.
We'll keep brainstorming, and if you guys in the comments have any suggestions for topics that you would love to see us cover, give us some suggestions. But the idea going forward is this is going to be a weekly round table where we're going to just have fun, explore weird and interesting topics, and each week one of us is going to bring a subject and do a presentation like Dion did for us today. So I hope you guys all enjoyed that. Any last words, guys? What do you think, Jevim? What do you want to leave our audience with?
Go with your gut before you go with anything anyone else says, anything you've ever heard, ever, even in ancient books. Once you know yourself and you're in tune with that flow, you can't really go wrong when you listen to yourself.
How about you, Dion? Last words?
What she said.
And Ryan?
Thank you.
What he said. Oh, there's no one. Oh, backwards.
Sorry.
I do have something to say. I do have something to say. There's a whole range of Occult Explorers episodes, and they're all of a similar, nice and relaxed, some good research in there. So just go and check them out, because this is the reason why I met these guys in the first place. It's a real exploration and lots of rabbit holes for you to go down. You might not really care about the subject as a whole, but there are so many little sections within that, jumping off points, that go and indulge yourself. It's great. And then maybe go to my channel or Jevim's channel or Snappy's channel, everybody's channel. But go and explore the occult. It's loads of fun and really dark and sexy.
Super sexy.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And please, everyone, go like and subscribe to Ryan7. He's getting ready to drop his new tarot deck. He just released a video on martial arts. He has a couple new interviews out as well. He's always producing new content. He has a movie, potentially documentary on the way with Netflix. Lots of big works. Pay attention to Ryan. Go and like and subscribe. You can find his information below. And everyone, please tune in next week. We'll all be back again to discuss more of the wild and magical. So thank you, everyone. Peace and love. Take care.
Abracadabra.